Thanks for being here, Secretary. The Biden administration is aggressively pushing to industrialize the East Coast, as you know, with offshore wind. As Secretary, you facilitated over $200 million in maritime administration grants for wind ports. In honesty, few people support offshore wind much as strongly as you do. I want to be clear, I support clean energy, I support solar energy, I support nuclear energy. They are safe, they're economically viable, and offshore wind, in my opinion, is neither. Offshore wind negatively impacts transportation safety under this committee's jurisdiction, and that's why I ask you about it. I'm not asking you an energy question, including maritime navigation and aviation. Offshore wind interferes with radar systems. This includes maritime navigation radar and air traffic radar. And this is not me just saying this. A recent study found that mid-Atlantic wind farms interfere with 36 different land-based radar systems. This interference diminishes safety at sea and in the air. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, which you're very familiar with, determined that offshore wind increases, again, it's not me saying this, it's them, the risk of maritime collisions, the risk of injury, and even the risk of death at sea. Your own FAA is now reviewing the impact of offshore wind projects on major airports, including New York's JFK Airport and in my district, the Atlantic City Airport. In both cases, offshore wind interferes with airport flight paths. Somehow, these projects have already been approved by the federal government despite the aviation safety conflicts that exist. I have a simple question and I appreciate a yes or a no. Can you commit to me that the DOT and the FAA, through the federal environmental review process, will block offshore wind turbines from being built in areas if found that they will threaten air traffic safety in those areas? Would that be blocked?
Yeah, FAA will never permit an unsafe condition.
So you would help to make sure that that was blocked?
If there was no alternative and it was going to be unsafe, then the FAA wouldn't be able to support it.
I just wanted you on the record on that. In my opinion, these conflicts prove that safety evaluation is incomplete to this date, and again, not just me saying, and that offshore wind is moving ahead, in my sense, prematurely. The GAO office, the Government Accountability Office, is currently conducting a comprehensive study of the impacts of offshore wind. We requested that. It includes a major focus on safety impacts. It looks at the environment, the economy, national security, utility costs, noise, natural disaster resilience, not all of which falls under your bailiwick, but some of it does. We must understand the breadth of the impacts of offshore wind. It's a permanent industrialization of our ocean. Should we wait? All I'm asking here is for the GAO study to be completed. That's not a Republican study. It's not my study. It is the Government Accountability Office, totally nonpartisan. Shouldn't we wait until their safety analysis is done before we go ahead and build offshore wind? Yes or no?
I can only weigh in on the transportation side of the House, but we will not proceed with anything we think harms safety. And if GAO or anybody else produce data or analysis that would affect a safety decision about transportation, we'd want to know it.
So we're building those projects now. Shouldn't we wait until they come back and say whether they're safe or unsafe? A purely objective, non-political, non-partisan viewpoint.
As a general rule, we don't terminate economic development because research is underway, but when research is completed, we include that in our future work.
Well, the shame of that is, and was alluded to before, if we go ahead and are in the middle of doing these projects and find that there are safety issues where they're being placed, now we've spent huge amounts, and I mean huge amounts of taxpayer dollars, and we find out that we shouldn't move forward. Either way, we're going to move forward and it'll be unsafe, or we wouldn't move forward and spent a ton of money that we shouldn't have spent. And by the way, with offshore wind, everybody pays more. The government, huge multi-billion-dollar subsidies. Taxpayers pay more for that reason. Families pay more because the utility rates are going to increase radically. See, the difference with solar panels is when you use solar panels, it decreases the cost to the family for their energy source. When you do wind, their costs and residential utility rates are going to go way up. These developers and also are foreign countries. Now, all of that doesn't fall under you. I realize that, but the safety issues do. They are enormously expensive, and the subsidies are great. Do you support, okay, I have the last question. Do you support the offshore wind financing strategy of increasing utility rates?
We support options for the American people when it comes to energy. Again, from a transportation perspective, that's mostly making sure there's adequate port facilities.
I have more questions I would like to ask unanimous consent to put them in the record.